Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Mid-Suffolk Planning Committee. I am Councillor Sarah Mansell and I will be chairing the meeting today. This meeting will be broadcast on our YouTube channel and will be capable of repeated viewing. The meeting will be recorded except where there are confidential or exempt items. If any member of the public attending this meeting objects to being filmed, please advise us immediately and we will ensure that they are not included in the filming. Members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. If you intend to do so, please could you inform a committee clerk. May I please request that mobile phones are put on silent or switched off and that your laptops are also switched to silent. If you hear the fire alarm, please leave the building immediately via a fire exit and make your way to the assembly point at Alderman Park. Staff will assist individuals requiring support evacuating the building. So first of all, we have some introductions. We have on the front bench on my left, we have the Area Planning Manager, Gemma Walker, and we have Case Officer Vincent Pearce, who will be presenting the first two cases. Behind them, we have our Legal Advisor, Ian Dupre, and we have Governance Officers Claire Philpott, Alicia Norman and Karen Sayer, making sure the meeting runs to order. And on my right, we have the members of the committee who will be making the decisions. So can I move to the agenda, please? Item number 1, apologies for absence and substitutions.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Lavinia Haddingham and Councillor Matthew Hicks. However, Matthew might be able to join us later. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2, to receive declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests or other registrable or non-registrable interests by members. Are there any interests to declare? If there's none from the members of the panel, I have an interest to declare because my son works at Thurston Community College and I used to work there actually probably about 15 years ago as a exams invigilator. So I am familiar with the site. Councillor Warboys.
Well, thank you for reminding me, Chair. Many, many years ago, I did teach at Thurston Community College.
It was more the case that my son's there now. I thought I'd better declare that one. Item number 3, declarations of lobbying.
Just one email from a company related to the project.
For Thurston?
Yes.
So did everyone get one of those? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 4, declarations of personal site visits. I did happen to go past Thurston Community College yesterday, so I went up Exworth Road to look at the side of the site where the new building's going to be. So I suppose I better declare that. I went deliberately to look at it, so that was a personal site visit from the road. Anyone else? Item number 5, confirmation of the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 3rd of June 2026, which are in the tabled papers. Are there any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes? If not, then could I have a proposer, Councillor Carter, and a seconder, Councillor Elkin? So the Governance Officer will now conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Carter, how would you like to vote? Thank you. I'm in a good mood. Okay, thank you. Councillor Warboys, your vote hasn't come through. Your vote hasn't come through. Shall I take it verbally? The minutes? Thank you. And Councillor Lawrence? Okay, thank you. So, Chair, that's 2 abstentions and 4 votes for, so that's carried.
Okay, thank you. The minutes of the meeting have now been approved and they will be signed in due course. So item number 6, to receive notifications of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
Item number 7, site inspections. Any requests for further site
None
inspections?
received, Chair.
Thank you. Then we move to item number 8, which is our schedule of planning applications. As previously advised via email on Monday, item 8C, the application number DC 2600554, has been withdrawn by the applicant and will not be presented to committee today. So we will move straight on to item 8A, which is DC 2601037, Thurston Community College, Norton Road, Thurston, Bury St Edmunds. And I will invite Vincent Pearce to introduce the application to committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members, people in the audience and anyone who may be watching and listening elsewhere. I'm going to take you immediately to Thurston and to the Community College on Norton Road. The usual preamble insofar as the presentation is merely meant to provide some illustration and supplement the detail in the committee report. In terms of updates, you've had 2 tabled papers. We are slightly amending the recommendation that's in the committee report. We've set out on the tabled paper what that is, and I can confirm that we've had a series of amended drawings that were alluded to in my report, and they do show what we were hoping they would show, but I will present that as we go through. So here we are in Thurston, and this is a proposal to build a new school and then to demolish the existing school. There's also included a whole range of sports improvements as well. And the reason that the existing school requires demolition is because it has RAC, reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete issues. And just so that we can familiarise ourselves with what that actually means, I'll go on to that in a minute. But this is an application submitted by the Department for Education, the DFE, supported by the school, and in the background, Suffolk County Council. So our dealings have been primarily with the DFE and their agents. In terms of RAC, I'm hoping we can just... There is no sound to this, so if that's going to work. No. This is the bit that always annoys me when we get to committee, that there's never a button that you need. So, what is RAC? RAC is something that was used later part of last century. It was seen at the time as an innovative material. It's much lighter than concrete. As the name suggests, it has effectively bubbles through it that make it a lot lighter. Compared to concrete, it can float. However, set within the RAC system, there are the steel reinforcement rods. And what has happened over time, water has managed to penetrate into the RAC material. It's used mostly for roofing, and it has corroded the steel bars inside, and that has made it structurally unstable. So there are a number of schools across the country where so much RAC was used, the DFE and the government have decided it's better to simply replace the building, lock, stock and barrel, and that's what we have in Thurston. This project is one of the Secretary of State's highest priorities for new build in the country, so this is being monitored very closely by the government. We all know where Thurston is. So much goes on in Thurston, but for those who aren't familiar, there it is, just off the A14 as you approach Bury St Edmunds. The application site is the entire area of the college. In terms of what you see on the screen, it says, can you actually see a cursor moving? Not really, there. Virtually all of that grey area is to be demolished. The library building in the corner will be retained and converted to provide sixth form accommodation, and then the new school will be built in this corner of the site. I have more detail in a moment. As you can see, residential development has now reached the northern boundary of the school site. Quick flyover, you can see how much residential development there is now around the school. That field on the top right is now being developed for 210 houses, as is much of the scene outside the picture to the right. The existing school, largely single-storey with two-storey elements. So it's low, but it is, as you saw from the aerial photograph, it's very expansive. Now, the problem that the DFE and the designers have had is that in order to keep education being delivered on the site while the new school is being built, this has to stay, but because it has such a large footprint, there isn't sufficient land left to provide a single-storey building of the same sort of footprint. So they've had to go up on a smaller footprint. That accounts for why it's a three-storey building rather than a single or two-storey building. And we'll deal with that a little later as we go through the presentation. So the green-edged area is the school side. Everything yellow is urban, what is now urban development. And if we show you where new housing is being constructed at the moment in Thurston, I think it's fair to say that the school is no longer on the edge of the village of Thurston. It's now within what has become an urban area. Clearly there's countryside beyond, but between that countryside to the north, you will have housing. We've already got a lot on the immediate north, but there'll be more on the northeast side. So whilst I acknowledge the views of the parish council that the building does not have a particularly rural character, I think it's very difficult to design a three-storey building with a rural character, particularly when it's now in an urban setting. In terms of the main building, there it is. It's sort of a reverse E shape with two internal courtyards fronting onto Ixworth Road. That is the new sports hall, and that area that's currently the existing school, once that's been demolished, that will provide additional sport and recreation facilities. There are now 3 new car parks being proposed to serve the development. And the access to the northernmost car park is an access that already exists. It had previously been approved to provide a car park. Suffolk County Council were the planning authority for that. The new school is being designed to accommodate 1,650 students. The sixth form, what will happen is once that's been converted or adapted, the Bayton sixth form will close and the students will transfer to the main Norton Road campus. So 264 students will occupy the new sixth form. So on the top left we have the existing library building as it's known, which will be the sixth form, and on the bottom we have Bayton's sixth form. That will become surplus to requirements and will revert back to Suffolk County Council assets team. I've spoken to them about, well, what happens to that, although it's not part of this application, members may be interested. It goes back to the assets team and they have an internal priority cascade for reuse. The first on that list is education use. So they would look to see, could it be used for early years? Could it be used for special educational needs? Could it be used for adult learning? If there is no demand, or the building's not suitable for any of those, it then is offered to other departments within the county council. If there is no interest from those, it is then likely to be put on the open market. So in total, there'll be 1,914 students. That shows the extent of the demolition. So once it's gone, that all becomes sports facilities or potential sports facilities. Again, I've just highlighted the extent of demolition. It is colossal. But That will be providing education right up until the minute the new school is opened, and then the students will just transfer across, and then that gets demolished. In terms of the sports facilities, on that screen you can see that the red area is an area that's already used for sport. That gets lost in order to build the new school, but the demolition of the existing school provides that area at the bottom of the picture, and then there's some additional pitch area to the north. Overall, there is a net gain of some 2,500 square metres of sports facilities. So this isn't just a rebuilding of the school, it is the enhancement of sports facilities on the site. That's good for the students, but potentially it's also good for the community if we could secure an access arrangement for the community to use those facilities out of school hours. So in terms of Sport England and our policies, because there is a net gain, that's absolutely what we want to see. In terms of the sports facilities that will be available, it is significant. So high jump, long jump, shot put. We have a grass athletics circuit, rounders, basketball, rugby, training grid, lots of football, but that can be used for other things as you see from the screen. We've got mini football, cricket wicket, muggers, 4 muggers, and we know how Thurston needs mugger space, and a synthetic pitch. In terms of the layout of that sports facility, there's also a lot of internal space that is used for sport and similar activities that could also potentially be available to the community. So on the right, you can see there's a forecourt, 4 as in F-O-U-R, court, sports hall, changing facilities, fitness room, activity studios, dance studios. Potentially, if the community could get access to those as well, that would be a phenomenal asset for the village. But it's also an amazing facility for the students. We've been working with our communities team to try and prepare the ground for a community access agreement. There's still a lot of work to go, and to be fair to the DFE, their task is to provide the new building. We can't negotiate with the DFE to get the community access because that's not their responsibility, but we've been working with the agent, the applicant, and our communities team with the head or the principal, Maeve Taylor. What we're hoping is that if members were to grant or indicate they were minded to support this, we would continue that discussion during the build programme to try and conclude a community use agreement. That's the ground floor of the main building, and everything in pink is potentially where the community could get access to use the facilities. And it's been designed cleverly so that the rest of the school can effectively be shut down so that public can't wander around unauthorised manner to areas that the school don't want them to get access to. And to be fair, that has been amended to make it easier in the future to allow community use should we be able to reach an agreement. So we're pleased that those negotiations with the applicant have been fruitful. That's a recent quote from the principal, and effectively what, as Maeve Taylor is saying, is that they are committed not just to providing a fantastic education for the students, but they see the community as being the heart of what they do. And that gives me some comfort that we might be pushing at an open door in terms of community access. But obviously, the school's main task is to provide excellent education. Anything else potentially could be a distraction. So our communities team is working, or will be working closer with them to say there may be a business case that would help the school. There may be money available, perhaps from the parish or the district council, to facilitate out-of-hours use. So there's a much bigger dialogue to have going forward, should this be approved. We'll skip those because I've explained that. all I'm showing through this series is how the school can be locked down except for the areas. This is the new sports hall, and there have been some concerns expressed about its rather monolithic appearance. It is effectively a QB square, but it's a rectangular box. But as you can see, it is set back a long way from Norton Road, a significant way away from adjacent existing properties, and there will be, well, there's existing planting down here, but there will be a large amount of new planting that will act as a screen and a barrier. But in the interest of exploring the issue raised by the Parish Council and others, you could, by changing some of the cladding but keeping this exactly the same mass, try and break down the apparent mass of that building. So that's just grey coloured cladding. It's exactly the same building but with different colours added to try and break it down. Understandably, the architects and the applicant have said, well, potentially that could actually make it more visible if you start then suggesting what I had suggested, putting these other features in to break up the mass even further. My feeling is that with the amount of setback from a public vantage point, it isn't necessary to do that. So whilst on the left it does look like a massive building, that will not be visible from a public vantage point. It won't hit you as being that big because it's so far back. Another alternative, so here we've got the sports hall. This is a proposed pitch. You could potentially, with a bit of adjustment, add a tree belt, a planting belt closer to Norton Road. That way you'd be reinforcing the planting so you wouldn't necessarily be able to see the building way back in the distance. Or you adjust it a different way and you put the planting in front of the building. In truth, I'm not sure even that is needed, and why I say that is in terms of the landscape impact assessment, from Norton Road, what you currently see is this. With the new development, you see this. So even though it's a taller building, because it's set back so much further, its visual impact is reduced. That is true from Norton Road. Now, clearly from Ixworth Road, it's a different situation because you're much closer to a 3-storey building. But the sports hall is at the back. So whilst I've tried to consider how we might conceal it further, I'm not convinced in my own mind that it is necessary because of those factors. This is the scheme as originally submitted, 3 stories with a brick ground floor and cladding panels. The Parish Council and ourselves were concerned that that much cladding of that character all the way around the building did give it a more sort of an office feel. And what we wanted was something with a little bit more brickwork in order to give a sense of permanence, to accentuate the entrance and just tweak it, add it up a notch in terms of its overall design quality. Now, I don't mean that to deride the work of the architects. So what we've now got is this whole brick facade with expressed piers and recessed elements. There's an example that was built by the very same applicant in Richmond, I think it is, and it looks very impressive. With this extent of brick facade, I think that's going to look something really quite special. And what we've also managed to negotiate with the applicants and the DFE is the same treatment as you go around the corner. The same expressed vertical piers with the recessed panels in between. So effectively, we've now broken up that very long run of panelling, and now the impact should appear less because you haven't got one long run of very uniform treatment. So That's the view you get from Ixworth Road. You've now got the corner panel, the main area entrance with the blue. You've got a brick area that says this is the main part of the building, this is the entrance, here we are. These are all classrooms, but as you can see, the buildings that are being retained off Ixworth Road, that's the caretaker's cottage and other assorted buildings, they will also mask some of the impact of that building. And then beyond that, we've got tree planting as well that will further soften the impact of that mass. But there's no getting away from it. It is a 3-storey building, and the existing building is only a single-storey building. There's no way of, it is what it is. But we feel with that treatment, it's, in design quality terms, it's very good. That shows you what we consider to be the principal elevations. I've adapted those to show that this is now the brick with the recessed panels and the piers. That's what you would see from Ixworth Road. That will be the new main pedestrian cycle entrance to the school. The entrance is in here. Although this is CGI, and we all know that CGI tends to show nirvana, in truth, the amount of new planting that's being proposed, it should look like that, but it'll take 10, 15 years to look like that. But certainly the applicants are committed to large-scale planting. As you can see, this open area in front of the school, this is actually between the road and existing residential properties and the new school building. So this will become a rather delightful garden, landscaped garden. Again, softening the impact of that building from the street. To the rear, we have a series of 2 internal courtyards that can also double up as an eating area for the pupils. You can get shaded areas, sunny areas. And what you'll notice is these shaded, covered seating areas all have PV built in. And the school has put a lot of emphasis on highly sustainable construction methods. So where they can, they've used innovative measures to try and create energy from alternative sources. Being an application made by a government department, you would expect them to be tasking the applicant and the building and the school with the highest levels of sustainability you can get. They are aiming for, or achieving, very good in terms of BREEAM. That's a typical floor plan. You have lifts throughout the building. If we look at the existing library, that is a series of classrooms, and at the end here we have the community library and a meeting room. That will be retained, even though the rest of it will be converted to 6th form. That area will be retained. I did have a slide here that shows you the library, but that looks as though that won't be working. So what's happened here is potentially the community get an extra two space area. So that has been expanded in this proposal. Certainly the parish council in the recent past were looking to try and extend the space, and I'll leave Vicky or whoever's speaking for the parish to talk to that matter. But this does include an expanded community space within the library building. Parking, this has been, as I think I tried to explain at the beginning, originally the new car park to the north of the site was going to be used by buses and coaches for dropping off. And this has caused a lot of angst within the village. The parish council certainly were hostile. The highway authority were concerned, and the issue in Ixworth Road is it is narrow. If you're trying to have coaches or buses passing, it's going to be difficult. There are actually 2 pinch points where the width of the road falls below 5 metres. We think about 4.8 metres, which is below the minimum width you would really want to have 2 coaches passing. And yes, it is a road, it's an existing highway, it is used, and lorries do pass. What we were trying to avoid is making that situation any worse by drawing further HGVs into the area. So there's one pinch point, and then we have another pinch point there. You can see the pinch point to the north is right beside an existing property that almost fronts the road. Maybe. So what was being proposed is for coaches to come in to that parking area. They would go all the way around. Then the students could safely get to the school entrance from the coaches by that means. You'd have vehicles moving in there. You'd have students moving in there. And all in all, we thought that was a lot of movements, particularly as they were coaches and buses, unnecessarily complicated, potentially unsafe. The access wasn't wide enough to allow a coach to turn in and out without crossing the centre line. And the applicants have responded incredibly constructively to those concerns. And they have submitted an amended scheme whereby the coach parking and the bus parking has now been removed. So whereas this was coach parking area, this will now be car parking. We are very pleased with that amendment. We are very satisfied with the use of that area for car parking. And what has happened is, in order to achieve that, the existing coach and bus park on Norton Road will be retained, modified and improved. So that way we'll have buses and coaches completely segregated from pedestrians, cycles and cars. And I say completely segregated, obviously the students have got to get off the buses, but the architects have introduced a splitter island in here, and that's important insofar as when you have two buses at the beginning, obviously the student can get out onto a path and get to the school, but on the other one they can use that central reservation to also get to the footpath system safely, and that applies at that end as well. You just use that area, or you go down the central reservation over the crossings and use the path. Additional parking shown there with H, that serves the sixth form. Another car park midway on Ixworth Road, that's an existing access. In terms of cycle parking, obviously being a school, safe routes to school and encouraging students and staff to cycle to work. 144 spaces are being provided at the northern end, right by the entrance. That's in a double-stacked system. Each module, shown as J and J, provides 72 parking spaces, secure parking spaces for cycles. They will be lit. That will also provide a further 16 spaces. That's a double. That may not be the exact one, but that's a typical stacking system. You often see them at railway stations. And down at the sixth form college end, there'll be another 54 bike storage spaces. So all in all, 216 spaces will be provided. That's about 11% of the students. The school, DFE, and even Suffolk County Council are satisfied that that is a sufficient number for the level of pupils. Should cycle demand go up, there is more than enough space on the site to expand those secure cycle facilities. Connectivity. The blue line there shows how students, anyone, can get to the school by cycle. That's an existing cycleway provided by Persimmon, and then you get the connections into the school, and then there are a whole network of paths within the school site. The report does talk about potential access that we had secured when Persimmon developed this site. One was there potentially, and another potentially there. We have, excuse me, we did ask the applicants whether they could provide that additional link, and they and the principal have resisted that on the basis of safeguarding. grounds. And in truth, what we envisaged is you'd come into a point here, you'd have to break through the existing barrier, and you'd come down through here. And understandably, the school have said, well, the students are already coming down here, so all you're really saving them is that bit of the journey. Is it really worth it to potentially introduce a new opening into the school that then has to be supervised for the sake of that section, when this is now a footway cycleway? And on reflection, I have to say that does have merit. So I'm not convinced, and we haven't required them to create that access. What you should see on the screen, the two green rectangles are crossings that are in the process of being provided as a result of residential development elsewhere. So as you can see, with the county and ourselves and the parish, we are gradually building a very secure cycle network through this part of the village. That's the existing cycleway. The green dash is footpath 18. It all fits into an ever-increasing network of pedestrian and cycle-friendly networks around North Thurston. Members may recall that the Parish Council have an ambition to create a sort of a northern ring road for pedestrians and cycles right the way across North Thurston, and this is part of that overall jigsaw. Landscaping, I haven't included all the landscaping drawings because of it being such an extensive site, but I've shown you some bits that are closest to existing residents in the hope that it'll help to provide some comfort that this building will not be unduly invasive to them. So on the screen at the moment is the main school. We've got the entrance up here. You can, as we go through the whole, you need some space to be able to walk around, but almost all of the roof of the school will be a green roof. That is a colossal expanse of green roofery. So that in itself brings in a lot of BNG benefits. We may not get to see the butterflies and bees, but they'll certainly, hopefully, be up there doing their thing. There'll be meadow planting. We'll have woodland edge planting. Whoops, let's go back. Hedge planting. There'll be a pond. The trees along here will be extra heavy standards, and as you will recall, they're the ones that give immediate impact. They need a lot more early maintenance in order to keep going, but they provide that immediate oomph. And that's asked for, and the applicant has agreed to that, as a way of also softening the immediate impact of a 3-storey building. I haven't gone through all the levels of landscaping just on that screen, but you can see that it's been carefully considered that in time that will create a very dense and rich landscaped area. And that theme really is carried on around the site. The one area that is potentially less verdant is the northern boundary. And you'll see from your table papers we've had representations from Persimmon about the proximity, the very narrow strip, what they've described as a narrow strip of landscaping, and I'll come on to where we've got to in terms of the housing development, but I have to re-emphasise this access has already been permitted. So in terms of potential disturbance to neighbours, the fact that it won't have coaches and buses anymore is a plus. It will now be cars as it was originally intended. But let's explore, well, that just gives you an idea of the range of planting. Here we go. So all of this here is Persimmon's Hakewell Mews development, which is effectively is an extension of their earlier College Park development. And this access here will take the cars in and out of the car park. You will see that there's a house here. Persimmon presented the scheme with a house here, and we as the planning authority have approved it, in the knowledge that this was going to be a car park. These houses are set back a little bit further from the northern boundary. These aren't yet occupied, I believe. I think that's the show house, but if it is occupied, then I don't want to mislead the committee. So I've shown that in additional detail. So the black are the houses, so that's obviously a garage. And it is close to that boundary, and there will be some disturbance, but that is a situation that we approved in the knowledge that it will be a car park. We certainly weren't expecting it to be a bus and coach park. It won't be, so that's good. So what is being proposed on that boundary? It's an instant hedge. So the applicants have been working with us to come up with a solution that provides all year greenery, and it comes at a height, instant height. So that could be 2 metres, 2.5 metres. That is the amount of space available with an access in this position. I've looked at how you could start to curve this, now that we don't have to deal with buses and coaches, you could curve that road out. You lose some parking spaces in here. You do provide an additional depth of planting, which is beneficial to these 4 houses, but there's not much you can do to add landscape buffer to this house because that access point is fixed. The only way that you could improve it is to move an access that has already been formed. It hasn't had the top surface on, but it has been formed. Understandably, that is an expense that the DfE do not feel is reasonable. They're providing a new school, and access exists, and they know that the planning authority allowed that arrangement in the knowledge that there would be houses close to and adjacent to a permitted car park. That's the existing access midway on Ixworth Road. If we look at the impact of that development on the 3 immediate neighbours, Cedars Cottage, the Cedars and Bush Cottage, the area to the south already exists. That was the low-storey range of buildings on the previous slide. So that will be retained. But you can see here the extent of new planting, I think, is sufficient to provide these houses with good amenity, and I think in time that the 3-storey building will simply recede into the views once that planting gets established. That at the moment is building. That will be demolished. So the houses at the lower end of Ixworth Road on the eastern end shouldn't really notice much of a change in terms of their outlook. In the report I do have this drawing, and that's important because you do operate a 25-degree principal angle between buildings for daylighting and to avoid adverse impact on outlook. And you can see through that cross-section that the existing closest house here, no building will cut that line. So this really will not have an adverse impact on the amenity of those closest properties in your own policy terms. Now, at the start, when I showed you the view from Norton Road, and I said that building would recede, there's no disguising the fact that that's what you will see from Ixworth Road, and all this planting would have to grow up. But the previous slide with the 25-degree principle, that is set back so far that it can't be said to cause any adverse impact in planning terms. In terms of lighting, there we've got an existing pitch. There is no lighting. The proposed muggers will have some lighting, and that's an area that we're conditioning to ensure that that doesn't result in unnecessary glare for residents living on the other side of the road. Generally, it is low-level lighting for the parking areas. As part of the sustainable construction approach, the school are looking to use LEDs, not have them on when they're not necessary. There could be some low-level lighting as well. But that is a matter we've conditioned. In terms of drainage, we are very satisfied, as is the LLFA, with the arrangements that are being shown. Effectively, what happens is those blue arrows take water to underground tanks. There is no adverse impact on the drainage system, and ultimately, once the existing building has gone, the water will feed into the existing system, which sits under the sixth form block. Now, because at the start I said the site is constrained physically, a number of people said, well, what if, with the amount of development that's happening in Thurston, we needed to expand the school? How easy would that be? And on the submitted drawings, there's an area where you could extend that northern wing, you can extend the central wing, and in theory, where the existing building has been demolished to provide the sports pitches, you could potentially have some more building classrooms there. So the design has future-proofed the site, because the layout of the floor plans would allow these corridors to be extended and the wings to be pushed further out. You'd have to modify some of the pitches, but it has been incorporated into the design at this stage to make that possible. Sustainable elements include, as we said, BREEAM very good, fabric first approach, ground source heat pumps. Now, we don't see many of those, but because they've got such large areas of outdoor pitches, it is possible to provide ground source heat pumps. We've seen the green roof. The design includes swales within the grounds, water gardens. The design is an all-electric generation strategy-based approach, and it goes on. B&G at 13.6. They have thought about water conservation in terms of waterless urinals and water-efficient fittings. And I draw your attention, I have in the report, but the MPPF, at paragraph 100, makes it a priority that planning authorities should be encouraging and facilitating delivery of new schools where they are needed. And in this case, although we have a school, it soon won't be fit for purpose and we'll need a new school. So it is clear that the government's planning policies are focused on making this sort of development possible. So our recommendation is that with the changes to the elevations and the parking arrangements, we're happy with the scheme. In fact, we're very happy with the scheme. What we've also had is a number of other additional surveys submitted, BAT surveys and things. We will still need to go through those with our consultees, but we are satisfied that from what we've seen so far, that will end up with a positive outcome. But because the applicant is up against a very tight time scale for getting an approval, we are suggesting that if you are minded to grant planning permission, you delegate authority to the Chief Planning Officer to issue that decision once we've had a chance to look through those other documents. If they're satisfactory, he would grant planning permission subject to all the conditions in the report and on the amendments sheet. The target for the DFE is to start building this summer and have the school finished next year. Any delay knocks that whole building programme out of kilter, but it also adds phenomenally to the cost. And I know you're not here, I know and you know you're not, that's a matter for the DFE, but it is an important consideration in the background in terms of ensuring that our students in that part of the district get a good education. So on that basis, we are recommending approval. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from members? Councillor Carter.
Found the right button eventually. Right. Whilst the environment scheme is fantastic with the things, just out of interest regarding the building itself, residential properties, we request them to have Swift box bricks access. Will the school also have a Swift access, bricks on the?
Certainly require them to, and they've already included a lot of ecological mitigation. What I would say is we'll have to discuss how we achieve the box pattern, bird boxes, because the bricks are slips, not full bricks. So they're effectively a cladding. In this, we like it's a sort of a traditional cream brick, but they will be fixed onto the face of the building. They won't actually be constructed in bricks, traditional bricks. But for the purpose of the visuals, it will look like a brick structure. So that's something we will work out, but there's no reason why we couldn't have. I think they're probably better on the roof, Councillor Carter, than on the face of the building, because they can be undisturbed up there, and birds and bats can have a field day within the green roof area, unless I don't know enough about these things to make that claim, but it seems sensible to me to put them on the roof.
Thank you. Councillor Warboys.
Yeah, thank you for an excellent presentation. It's ticked off a lot of questions already. I've just got one. It's we've had a response from the fire department, the water officer, regarding access and for the services. Have we had an investigation of how students move around the school and the relation of the corridors, the number of classrooms and the fire and the stairwells? It's kept me awake at night, this, because I keep thinking of the number of classrooms and the width of the corridors, number of stairwells, and you're looking at literally hundreds of students moving around at any given when lessons change over.
An interesting question, and I'm sure, without wishing to dodge the question, that might be a question you should ask our applicant when you have the opportunity, because I know that they have designed it to within an inch of its life in terms of current standards, not just building regs, but also set down by the DFE for the delivery of new school spaces. So I'm sure they will tell you it meets the latest standards. But we'd rather you were sleeping well at night, so I'll let them deal with the detail, if I may.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you turn your mic off, Councillor Warboys? Councillor Elkin.
Thank you, Chair. I had a couple of cladding questions as well. One of the things raised by the parish council was part of their concern about it looking like a big block, I think, was the colour of the cladding. And they'd asked, it looked like a sort of bluey grey colour on the slides. In your magic bag, have you got some?
Here's one that was prepared
Here's
earlier.
one you prepared earlier.
Yes. So, that's the blue, and in a way it's almost like a pastel shade. What we were thinking is with the grey, and I look to Councillor Warboys with your artistic bent, that on certain occasions could look very much like the sky. That's quite a nice combination set against. Thank you for noticing, Councillor.
Not one famous shape.
But, that's a nice contrast. Then we have a darker grey, but within that, actually is quite pleasant. The one that has drawn a little bit of breath is the yellow, but that yellow is part of the school emblem. This is used very infrequently just to accentuate certain points of the building. So that is hardly used, and it's certainly used less now that we've got the brick elevations. So people have their own favourite colours, but in terms of the blend, I know the applicant has put a lot of time and effort into producing something that won't make the building look completely stand out, and they've tried to merge it with sky.
Do you want to come back?
Thank you. Yes, no, I know there's lots of guidance, isn't there, on how to make big masses blend into the background. My other question was maybe one for the applicant, but I know post-Grenfell there's been a lot of thought about cladding on multi-storey buildings, and I didn't know, I don't know if safety specs have changed or in the process of changing. It was just a question around that, whether we can be reassured that they meet whatever the current safety standards are.
I'm sure in terms of the building regs that would be the case, but because it is a legitimate concern of yours, I'm sure the applicant can tell us the answer and give us the full spec on what that cladding can do.
Councillor Lawrence?
Thank you, Chair. Just to seek some clarification, at the moment, if we were minded to accept the recommendations and approve this application, we still have outstanding from Suffolk County Council and Highways an objection. And as on previous applications, they've always been given as a statutory consultancy that they are the priority, inverted commas. And so I'm struggling a little bit with how this would tie together. Thank you.
A good point. Part of the, just to be, if it isn't in the recommendation, we should add it that the Chief Planning Officer would also have to be satisfied that the County Council as local highway authority is happy. In principle, because I've spoken to them and they've been privy to the changes, they are likely to be very happy with the changes that have been made. It was the bus and coach parking that was their concern, but by all means, I think that should be in the, we should add it to the recommendation if it's not in there at the moment, just to be crystal clear. Thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you. Councillor Hardingham?
Thank you. You mentioned underground tanks for surplus stormwater, and it also mentioned swales in the plan. Is there provision for desilting the underground tanks in the future, should they become silted up?
Again, we have the technical experts from the applicants here this morning. It's something that we would normally expect, but that is a matter where we defer to our colleagues from the LLFA.
Did you have any more questions? If not, I'll have my questions. I've got some questions about the parking and the cycle parking. The parking that is adjacent to the existing library building, can you just run me through how cars are going to get into that? That's my first question, because it looks like they have to run through the new bus and coach drop-off area. So I'd like to know how you access the car park next to what will be the sixth form building.
Sorry, Chair. You are right. This is the access to the parking area. The buses are queued up from that point backwards, and the drop-off to the sixth form and the library is as existing in this area at the front. But the buses are held back effectively at that point.
So at the current time, there is supposed to be a one-way system through the bus area. There are no entry signs on that entrance where you've got on the bottom of that thing there, although cars do go in it, even though it's got big no entry signs. And that is where the buses are exiting. So I'm just a bit concerned that you know, they're not completely separate, because the cars will be going in. I'm assuming cars will be going in and out of that bus exit, and that's, I just wanted that to be clarified.
Yes.
And my other question is about the bike storage. I think you said there was some at the sixth form block. There's two big chunks near the top left-hand corner of the big building, and there was another bit in the middle. Are any of them to be designated as staff cycle parking?
I don't believe so, but it's certainly something we can discuss with the applicants, because I imagine we would want to encourage teachers to come to school by bike, and I imagine they might want to be confident that their brake cables hadn't been cut during break if they'd given somebody a detention. So I think there is a reasonable case for providing some separate staff parking. Car parking for members of staff has been provided and is segregated. Perhaps that's something we could ask the applicant whether in principle they'd be happy to.
My other question, I'll keep the other bits about cycling to the debate. Has any thought to being put into using batch-friendly lighting in the car park area? That's the sort of red stuff that I've seen elsewhere in the country.
Certainly lighting, it's one of the areas that we have conditioned, and we've had some additional material. Certainly within the lighting scheme there is bat-friendly lighting shown. Whether or not that is red lighting, that's something maybe we might want to ask the agent, because we need the pupils to be able to move around easily with the lighting, and if the cycle storage areas are to be lit, which they are, it'd be interesting to see if a red light would actually.
I've seen these bat-friendly lights along new roads in Worcester, and they're like street lights, but they're red.
Okay, well that's, in a sense we've conditioned it, but that hasn't answered your question. I'd quite like to ask the applicant, because I'm just thinking students coming out, winter, it's dark, they're finding their bikes. Does a red light help that? It might help the back.
It was more the car park. I understand that the sports pitches and maybe the cycle sheds will need white light, but in the car park area, I thought maybe bat-friendly lighting might be feasible. But anyway, that's an opinion, not a question. Are there any further questions of the officer? Councillor.
Thank you. I think I had a question. I think it was also slide 36 or 37 either. I don't know if it's possible to have a look. Yeah, so where the road comes in on the sort of bottom left corner, there's a sort of brown bit going across the road. Is that a sort of raised pedestrian? Yes. Yeah.
That's so that when you come off the bus, you effectively have a safer strip, and then this path takes you right up to the main entrance.
So the young people coming off the bus,
yeah,
walking across that to then walk into the sixth form, but the coaches are also coming out that way.
They are, but they're having to stop there because they stop there anyway.
Yeah.
And this will, if it's an issue that is a concern, perhaps we could condition the nature of that, how that's created, whether it's painted or just so that we can be sure that it does what it's supposed to do, and that's make it clear that pedestrians have a priority at that point. And it may be sorry, I don't know whether we're straying into debate, but the point you also made, Chair, about vehicles, it might be that we would have to look at some sort of condition requiring additional controls and signage. I don't know. perhaps that's a matter for debate.
Can I just
Yeah.
come back? I sort of got some personal experience of this. My youngest is still at Hartismere sixth form, which they've had a lot of issues where there's been...
Oh, have you got a question?
Yes.
Otherwise it can be in debate.
Yes, if there can be extra signage, because you've got a lot of young new drivers probably coming in and out. So, yeah, is that more a question for the applicant and for the school as to what they would like to see there, perhaps? Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Carter.
Yes, on the subject of the staff parking, is there provision for a disabled bay? Because if there's a disabled member of staff, if they had to park in the disabled bay of the student access, it may be better to have one if possible. Thank you.
So each parking area has facilities for disabled drivers.
And quick point on the red lighting, it's adequate for backstage, so and also better for people who don't have drug usage. And there was a question relating to Councillor Elkin's point regarding the drivers. Whilst it is more costly to change the access, wouldn't having additional area for the planting provide a bit of additional safety should there be a new driver going into an access which is quite a steep turning to go through? Wouldn't a green buffer add a bit of a safety aspect and a bit of security for the residents there? And you've mentioned about the trees not being necessary, another planting. Could we still recommend it because it would provide peace of mind and certainty?
In answer to the question, you could require some additional planting behind, and we could ensure that when we're talking to our county highways colleagues about the amended layout, they specifically look at the geometry and the arrangement where buses and cars could be coming into contact at that point just west of the sixth form. And if they say, well, there is a real issue, we'd have to be talking to the applicants about how we fix that. But I think that could be done under the recommendation. Were you minded to agree that?
Thank you. Right, if there are no further questions for the case officer, I'm sure we will come back to more questions after the public speakers. I will now invite the public speakers, and first on my list is from the Parish Council, Vicky Waples. Thank you.
Chair, members, Thurston Parish Council does support the principle of providing a new school. We recognise the importance of modern educational facilities and the need to invest in infrastructure of our growing community. However, support in principle cannot override the requirement for development to respond properly to its setting, to respect local character and to comply with the development plan. In this case, our concern is not with the need for a school, but with the form of development that has been put forward. As proposed, the building appears overly dominant in its scale, massing and visual impact, and it does not sit comfortably within its surroundings or reflect the established character of Thurston. Our adopted neighbourhood plan forms part of the statutory development plan and makes clear that new development should retain and enhance Thurston's character through design, respond positively to local contexts and avoid harm to the qualities that make the village distinctive. The proposal raises clear concerns under the neighbourhood plan's approach to character, to movement and landscaping. Policy for retaining and enhancing Thurston character through design is directly relevant. The proposal should demonstrate how its scale, built form, materials and appearance reflect local distinctiveness. Yet the current design reads as a large institutional building that risks appearing out of keeping with the grain of the village. Policy 9 concerning landscape and environment features is also important. Development of this scale must be integrated through strong landscape treatment and careful boundary design. But at present, the scheme does not appear to provide sufficient reassurance that its visual impact has been properly softened, as it is reliant on landscaping features to grow. The Thurston Neighbourhood Plan places importance on safe movement routes, highway capacity and parking provision, and these issues are particularly acute for a school development. The likely effects of drop-off and pick-up activity, additional traffic and the pressure placed on local roads must be fully addressed, alongside the effect of neighbouring amenity in terms of noise, disturbance, lighting and activity. These are not minor matters. They go to the heart of whether the proposal is generally suited to the location. The Parish Council therefore asks that significant weight be given to the Neighbourhood Plan and Mid-Suffolk's own development plan when determining this application. If members are minded to support a replacement school, then we ask that the scheme better reflect local character, strengthen landscaping and demonstrate a more robust response to access and amenity impacts. We are supportive of the retention of the existing coach/bus parking area on Norton Road, and the proposed Ixworth Road parking area is adapted by taking out coach and bus parking spaces and replacing them with additional car parking spaces. If this solution is adopted, the issues associated with coach and bus movements in relation to the Ixworth Road no longer arises. However, what we would support in there would be the provision of an additional segregated footway cycle link to the school building on the northwest edge of the car park from a safety aspect. This was on slide 41. We're asking for this as this will be available for those accessing the college from the west of the village, for example, Grange Park, who walk through College Park into the village, the school.
Are you almost finished?
I am.
One more sentence?
I am. We also support increased, secure and well-lit cycling parking provision for both staff and pupils.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Parish Council? Councillor Elkin?
Thank you. Would it be possible, you mentioned slide 41, is it possible just to see what you were referring to?
Yes, where there is a
Is that the one? The northern bit of car park is...
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I help? So, Northern Car Park over here. In terms of the Persimmon development, there is a point in here and one in here where we had safeguarded land to provide that link. So, I think, Vicky, what you're saying is you would want that to be utilised and to provide an access through for students and cyclists to enable the resident population up here to gain access directly from the northwest.
But it's not just those residents from there, it's also from Grange Park that come through College Park or use Cycleway 18.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Elkin? Are there any further questions for the Parish Council? Thank you very much. So we don't have an objector, we don't have a supporter, we have the applicant David Tomlin, and we also have a colleague, Julie Desormier, who is one of the architects, and she's going to be on hand via Teams for questions. I hope I've got that right. So over to you, Mr. Tomlin, you've got 3 minutes.
Members of the Planning Committee, thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I am the Regional Pre-Construction Manager for Beaumont and Kirkland, and I am the company's pre-construction lead and the applicant for this project, working for and on behalf of the Department for Education. This application forms part of the Department for Education's School Rebuilding Programme, an essentially funded government initiative which prioritises buildings according to their condition. As alluded to by Vincent, Thurston College is identified within this programme as a result of the presence of RAC. The programme is designed to deliver high quality, sustainable and efficient educational facilities, ensuring excellent value for public money, All projects are developed in accordance with the DfE's 2021 output specification and technical annexes, which set clear and highly regulated standards and outputs for design, performance, safety and operational efficiency. Thurston Community College is a key project within this programme, replacing ageing facilities with a modern, fit-for-purpose school designed to support both current and future generations of students. The proposals will provide a state-of-the-art learning environment complemented by enhanced sport and art facilities and a new SEND garden to enhance the school's special needs programme. The new building has been carefully designed to provide bright, well-ventilated and comfortable teaching spaces alongside specialist facilities that support a broad and modern curriculum. The layout promotes clear circulation, accessibility and inclusivity, improved outside spaces and helps to create a positive and supported environment for all students. We have carefully positioned the building to fit into the surrounding area and in consideration of views into the school site, and furthermore the building height is actually no taller than the peak of a two-storey house roof due to its flat roof as opposed to a pitched roof. Importantly, the scheme also enables the return of the sixth form from Bayton to the main school site, bringing students together, strengthening the sense of community and continuity in education. Dedicated sixth form facilities are designed to support both independent and collaborative learning, helping to better prepare students for further education and employment. From the outset, we have adopted a proactive and collaborative approach with officers and Thurston community stakeholders and the DfE team. This meaningful engagement and positive feedback have led to refinements to the facade design and bus and coach parking arrangements to ensure both a high quality appearance and a safe and efficient operation. We have also prioritised community engagement with over 200 people attending a consultation event at the college. The scheme was positively received by 94% of respondents, showing the overwhelming support for the proposals from the local community. In addition, comments received at public consultation has also helped shape the proposals presented today. Sustainability is central to the design. The building is developed to achieve net zero carbon in operation through a fabric-first approach supported by ground source heat pumps. This is complemented by a range of passive and active measures, including natural ventilation and heat recovery units, overnight cooling through controlled purging, high efficiency LED lighting and an enhanced building management system to optimise building performance.
Are you almost at
Almost,
the end?
yes.
Thank you. If you can just do your last couple of sentences.
Also, it incorporates 1,940 square metres of PV panels to move towards net zero. More importantly, the design also supports community use of the facilities outside of school hours, and refurbishment of the community library can only be seen as a bonus. So in summary, we respectfully ask the committee to support this application.
Thank you. I was going to ask for questions, but Councillor Lawrence has already put his hand up. Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Chair. Would the applicant consider the addition of the access requested just now by the Parish Council?
So I am the applicant, but I am very much led by Department for Education and also Meave, who is the principal. So safeguarding is very much a concern. It's covered in the technical manual that we have to comply with in order to design the building. I still think, my personal view is there will be some resistance to any more entrances to the school just for the fact of safeguarding and security. I think also at this time, might as well mention that the school are also actively now having to look at Martin's Law, which will soon become law applicable to the public use of buildings. And from a building management perspective, I know that Meave is very resistant to any further entrances in the school, bearing in mind that under Martin's Law, they will need to lock down the school very quickly and very effectively.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Warboys?
Yeah, I just wonder if you could clarify for me with respect to the number of stairwells and the number of classrooms on each floor. I think if I can trouble Vince to slide, oh gosh, which is it? It's 27A. That's, yeah. Now this is the first floor plan. I'd actually sort of looked at the top floor, but there's 42 classrooms on this with 5 stairwells. On the floor above there's 19 classrooms and 4 stairwells. You know, if you talk in terms of pupil numbers, optimistically there's 25 students in a classroom. So if on the top floor, 19 classrooms, you've got 475 pupils potentially at any one time. Now, schools being what they are, they tend to sort of move empty classrooms and fill classrooms all at the same time as periods change. So you're going to end up on those stairwells with 475 students going down from the second floor and 475 students coming up. That's an awful lot of bodies moving down those stairwells.
Yeah.
So my concern is that about the capacity.
It's a question. You're asking how the flow of students is going to be managed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I will start the answer to this question. So the DFE have very strict guidelines. We have a technical manual that we have to comply with, and we also have technical analyses which we have to comply with. Part of our design process is to look at this very closely. Now, if Julie is still online, Julie Desormier is our architect. She's classified as the lead designer, and perhaps she's better placed to actually answer your questions with regard to circulation and fire and how the lead designer deals with that during the design phase. Julie, are you able to answer that for me, please?
Hi, good morning. Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this question. So as David suggested, we are bound to obviously the building regulations with regards to capacity of staircases and fire safety, and the capacity of the staircases has been sized appropriately to accommodate the number of students in the building. The other thing to bear in mind is that actually the building regulation requires us, when it comes to fire safety, to assume that one staircase may actually be out of reach because it might be compromised by a fire. Therefore, the number of staircases and the width of the staircases is calculated assuming one of them is out of action. So when you're talking about students moving from lessons to lessons, there will actually be more capacity than there would be in the event of an emergency. The other thing that is taken into consideration is that students are usually really well trained in terms of fire drills, where the staircases are located, moving in an orderly fashion. And often we find that schools will, for class changes, will recommend will impose a one-way system so that you don't end up with issues where some students are trying to come down while others are coming up. We haven't discussed that specific detail with the school yet. That will be up for them to manage that. But I can assure you that the building has more than enough staircase capacity to accommodate the number of students on each of the floors.
Thank you. Did that answer your question, Councillor Warboys?
Yes, to a point. I think my concern was not the emergency evacuation of the building, but the daily circulation of the building, where you have students going up as well as down the staircase. Assuming in an emergency they're all going out.
Yes.
But during the day they'll be going both ways.
Well, just to give you an example, so we have 5 staircases in the building, at each end of the building and each of the knuckles, so they're evenly distributed across the building. The calculated capacity based on number of people that could go up or down in the staircase, the staircases would need to be, as calculated by the fire engineer, 1,260 millimeters wide, so 1.26 meters, while the actual width of the staircases is a minimum of 1.7, one of which, the most central one, is actually 1.8. So you can see that they're all actually oversized based on the required capacity and number of occupants on each floor.
That's lovely, thank you. So the staircases are oversized?
Thank you.
Correct.
Right, I think I've got Councillor Elkin and Councillor Carter, I think, was also putting his hand up. So, Councillor Elkin?
Thank you. My question was about the cladding and if fire safety standards for that have changed after Grenfell, and if you could just explain to us how that meets them.
Yes, I can answer that question as well. I can confirm that the Department for Education takes fire safety very seriously in terms of both actually life safety and property protection, and that all the cladding materials are and the insulation that is used are non-combustible.
Thank you. Councillor Carter, did you have a question? Anyone else got any questions? I'll go for Councillor Hardingham because he hasn't had a question yet.
Yeah, just briefly to follow up on my question about the stormwater and the underground storage tanks and the balance between that and the swales, and whether or not the underground tanks can be desilted in the future.
Desilted. As Vincent alluded to, LLFA are extremely strict on water attenuation and how we deal with surface water. So not only is our design have to go through scrutiny with the Department for Education, it also has to go through scrutiny from a planning perspective, in as much as the LLFA simply wouldn't sign off our scheme if it wasn't compliant.
Thank you. Councillor Warboys?
Yes, just one brief question. What's the expected lifetime of the building?
So there are two types of calculations on this. So the DFE have their own expected life cycle for the building. The expected life cycle isn't necessarily the life cycle. So the DFE asked for us to design to a minimum 75-year life, but the actual design of the building is expected to well and exceed 100 years.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If I can ask a couple of questions. My first question is about the minimal visitor cycle parking. You only have 2 spaces for visitors. Is there any capacity to put more than 2 for visitors close to the main entrance of the school?
That's a good question. So the main entrance itself, we normally wouldn't put cycle parking at all because it introduces a danger. So it is always put slightly in isolation away from any main entrances, and also to pick up the main circulation routes. Parking on this particular project has been divided. So we've got parking to the south separate for the sixth form. We've got parking to the north and slightly to the left for students. The eastern car park, as we call it, is, as well as being used by the school during the day, that is the available community use car park. And there are a number of hoops in the scheme. I can't recall, but I think there's 8 or 12 hoops which double up, which are available for just community use only.
So they're not all the up and over cycle route. There is some temporary cycle storage for parents visiting the school by bicycle. They don't have to go and find a key and lock their bike away. They can just go to a toast rack cycle.
No, the eastern car park has cycle storage, which is just the standard hoops that you would see in any public realm because they're easily accessible, and those are available as community use throughout the day and of course at weekends when it's being used as community use.
And what about if I was a parent and I wanted to visit the school? I had an appointment at the school. Where would I park my bike?
So you would park your bike in the community area, which is the standard parking area for the school. The school itself, the main car park, I don't get involved in management, but the school may choose during the day to close the car park gates at some time and then have parking to the east. But the actual management of the parking, once we've handed the school over, will form part of the school's travel plan, which, travel plan wise, I've got Toby here today. He can run you through more detail on the actual travel plan and how that will evolve during the next stage.
Well, I am quite interested in the travel plan because if you're genuine about a travel plan, then you should be allowing visitors to the school good access to cycle parking as well. But on the subject of management, which I know is probably outside of planning, but we've heard from our officer that there is intended to be community use, and the current staff at the school seem to be quite approachable about that. But how do we guarantee that should that current head move on? Will we still get the community use?
All I can say is I've delivered some 40 schools now for different companies under this DFE framework. There is not a school I know of that does not take advantage of the extra funds that are made available by using the building for community use. So, although I can't personally guarantee it, I can virtually tell you that every school I've ever done, they pursue community use as a form of fundraising and as a form of income. So all of the schools I've worked with have actually worked extremely hard to get as much community use out of their building as possible.
Vince.
If I may, I think you said, I just want to be clear, that the building as proposed at 3 stories is no higher than a 2-storey.
So visually, it's in the lowest section of the actual, so if we was to look at our land survey, it's in a low section of the school. But visually, if you stand back on Ixworth Road and look at it, the building itself, although it appears to be 3 stories, a 2-storey building with a 45-degree pitch roof, the actual ridge line is no different to the height of the school because the school's actually got a flat roof. So in terms of metrics, it still appears the same as what a house would with 3 stories if you included the roof and the ridge line.
Thank you for clarifying, because if the building is 12.3 metres high, that is higher than a 2-storey house. But what you're saying is, because it's set down and back, it won't appear higher.
It won't appear any higher, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Warboy.
Yeah, my fellow. The DFE has got a national programme of Pathfinder projects. Is this part of that programme?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question, so I can find out. I don't think it is, because this is being delivered under the 2021 framework. Currently, the 2025 framework is just becoming live. So paradoxically, there is a change between the two. But all I can say is that Thurston was identified as an urgent need for replacement due to the rack. So this was very quickly organised and very quickly got onto the market by the Department of Education just because of that need. But I would have to check that with the Department for Education. As I say, I'm only the applicant and the builder acting for and on behalf of the Department for Education.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Carter.
Yes, thank you. You've made mention of the Sen Garden and a sensory programme. From a perspective of Sen, triple storey buildings aren't the most obvious for sensory friendly. It's not obvious. Do you have areas per level for a sensory breakout rooms should students need it? What is the built-in provision? Because if you have a sensory programme expecting to have usage of the whole building, you may need areas for alleviation for meltdowns or something similar. And I'm assuming as well regarding the planning thing, width adequate width for wheelchair access and the lifts, adequate lifts for needs going up and down. So just checking that.
So Vincent might want to help me with the ground floor plan, but SEND has very much been part of the design process. Julie's online as well. This was very much talked about very early in the project. If you can imagine, as you come through the main entrance to the school, the first area you come to will be obviously the main reception, and then as you go down the corridor, that left-hand ground floor section of the school is SEND, and then naturally one of the openings will go straight out into the SEND garden, which is going to be a wildflower garden with butterflies, and it's going to be a natural grass track round with a pond, so it's a very nice area. And then of course there are 3 lifts throughout the building. The whole building is fully accessible, and it's fully designed to comply with building regulations for accessibility. All of the doors are all for wheelchair access, external and internal as well. And again, I refer back to the DFE have got a very strong technical manual which guides designers like Julie in how they develop the design for the building to make sure that it's fully accessible.
And I can add to that as well, that to answer the specific question about spaces on the upper floors for children with special educational needs is part of the DFE's brief to provide a number of group rooms that can be used flexibly, either for small interventions or can be used as well for one-to-ones for students who may need touch points with staff. And those are evenly distributed across the building.
Thank you. Councillor Elkin.
Thank you. It was just coming back to my earlier question about if you could just explain the entrance into the coach parking area where you've got young people coming off the coaches, cars going in and out of the sixth form, and obviously the coaches themselves. Could you just talk us through the sort of how that's all going to work? So how is the crossing going to work across that sort of little bottleneck bit?
We've discussed these measures in detail, haven't we, Tony? Would you like to run through how we're going to do tabletops and zebra crossings, etc., etc.?
But before you do, sorry to be rude and interrupt, can I just get the slides up on the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that would help.
Thank you. Yeah, so all coaches will, well, and cars will follow the white lining as you see there. We've got the designated spaces to the top of the plan, so you can see 5 marked out bays for buses, coaches, and then below with the island separation where pupils can alight kind of more safely than they do currently. And then there is space also for cars to pass between that second row and the footway to the south. Yeah, you can see it there. So students or whoever may be driving through that area will be able to pass coaches at that location. You've got 2 sets of what are currently marked out as zebra crossings, obviously providing priority for pedestrians. They could be marked out in any number of materials or with slight variations in height to make that clearer, the pedestrian priority. And I think it's also been mentioned by Vincent that there's potential for signage to be used also to support that. We've also got the benefit that the school charter the buses that come through this area, so there's the opportunity there to talk to the operators and make very clear about the priority that pedestrians have in this area and to follow certain protocols when they're moving through that space.
Did you want to come back? If not, I'll come back, certainly, but you can come back first.
It was just for my own understanding, the sixth form, the parking for the sixth form, would they then go off the top of the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
and if they're coming back out of that car parking. So the sixth formers will go off to the right-hand side, but then when they're returning out, they come back down and join that
Correct.
same exit, but from the other direction.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to need some.
I have got some correspondence with me, just to add to that. Supervised activity when the coaches come in. So there are always school staff supervising those activities whilst they're going on, and that is a standard across most schools with bus drop-offs. There will be normally at least 2 or 3 school staff in that area, marshalling as well.
Thank you. Can I just come back? So can we just go back to that plan of the way into that area? So all of the traffic will be going in the westernmost entrance off Norton Road. Can you just confirm that? All traffic will go in that, and the one that's on the screen now, that will only be an exit.
Yes.
And is that going to be managed? Because currently that is the case and it's not managed.
All I can say is that is a school management issue after the building's handed over. But I have had confirmation, especially when Toby and I were in design team meetings, that the school see this as a supervised activity.
I understand it's supervised for the students. I'm more worried about the drivers. And is that space going to? Are people going to be prevented from using it as a drop-off, as just a passing place? It should only be for access to the sixth form car park and for buses.
It is.
Nothing else should be. You're going in there, and that needs to be managed.
Vincent alluded to that on his very nice circulation diagram for the northern car park. Yeah. So that circulation route is actually going to be utilised as the drop-off area to the north of the site with cars only, whereas the south of the site is going to be for sixth form access and for coach drop-off only.
And we just need to be reassured that that will be managed properly. So, and whilst we're on the subject of the travel plan, and you've got your colleague next to you who is the travel plan expert, how does the travel plan encourage more use of sustainable transport than is currently the case?
So what we have in this situation is a school that they don't particularly have a live travel plan. So this planning application does represent an opportunity to bring them on board with the Mode Shift Stars programme, which I'm sure you're familiar with in this room. So within that, they'll sign up to a number of initiatives, whether it's cycle training, incentives to come via walking or cycling into school. That will be measured against, well, they have their sort of bronze, silver, gold standards. And I'm sure through the travel plan and the condition that would be placed on any permission, they will be required to go through that and for it to be fully monitored by Suffolk County Council's travel plan officer to their satisfaction.
Thank you. Councillor?
Sorry, just one more question on the where you've got that in and out with the coach area. Is that, I appreciate it's off the site boundary, but is there anything, I don't know the road, is there anything currently to stop parents parking between the entrance and the exit? Are there yellow lines there, or there are? I can see nodding.
I was going to say,
I think they are, but they're
I can answer that one. Yes, there is.
yeah, there's quite a lot of southern area of the site, definitely. Yeah.
But that bit is prevented from people clogging it up and blocking the visibility. And
yeah, my learned friend to the right could probably answer more, but I do believe all of that southern section has got TRO on it, and it's all traffic regulation order with doubles. Yeah.
Any further questions for the applicant? Thank you very much for your time. Now, there are 2 ward members for Thurston, and unfortunately neither of them can be here today, but we do have a comment, a written comment from Councillor Richardson, which I'm going to read out. So, I have taken considerable interest in this planning application, both because of its significance to Thurston and the need to ensure a timely determination given the constraints of the Department for Education's school rebuilding programme. The starting point in considering this application must be the continued existence of structurally floored, reinforced, autoclaved aerated concrete, or RAC, at Thurston Community College. This represents a time-critical need for a replacement for the existing school building, in addition to the requirement to expand school places to accommodate recent housing growth in Thurston and the surrounding villages. Regarding wider community engagement, I was particularly pleased that a well-attended and well-received public exhibition was held at the school on Tuesday the 20th of January, where the detail of this planning application was laid out in full. I am similarly supportive of the library enhancements and expanded sporting facilities that will be available to residents in Thurston and beyond. The relocation of the majority of parking facilities to the north of the junction at Ixworth Road, Norton Road, Station Hill is a welcome component of this application. However, it does not fundamentally resolve the safety concerns that exist around pedestrian crossings at this junction, particularly at peak times. I will return to this point later. I must, however, acknowledge and agree with the concerns around the design of the building itself, particularly regarding the height of the three-storey building. This does not reflect local character within Thurston, even with new developments. However, I'm mindful of three specific facts. Although Thurston's neighbourhood plan requires building heights to reflect neighbouring properties, Policy 4, it does not expressly prohibit three-storey buildings. Number 2, recesses within the land and planned landscaping will diminish the visual impact of the height of the building. And number 3, the need to comply with parking facilities, playing fields and biodiversity net gain requirements limit the opportunity for a lower, more dispersed design. With all of this in mind, on balance, I am therefore minded to recommend to the committee that this planning application be approved. However, I do have one further request. 2 pedestrian crossings at the junction with Ixworth Road, Norton, Station Hill have been planned since the original Thurston 5 development were approved almost 10 years ago, but have not yet been delivered. This is especially important as students regularly cross this busy junction at the beginning and end of the school day, often when traffic flows are at their highest, with significant safety concerns arising as a result. Responsibility for the implementation of these crossings has been repeatedly deferred and made the responsibility of subsequent developments, which has been a source of deep frustration locally. If the committee are sympathetic to this argument, I would advocate attaching a condition to the planning approval that construction of the new school building does not exceed slab level until these crossings have been installed. That's it. I wondered if it went over the page. It was right on the bottom. So that was the comment from Councillor Richardson, and I think Vince wants to comment on the pedestrian crossings, maybe?
Yes. Only on a planning matter. We cannot require the DFE to hold back construction of the school pending delivery of crossings by a third party, in this case the county council. That would put the DFE in an unacceptable position of having started and then having to stop until such time as the county council delivered those 2 crossings. I think the alternative might be for this committee, if you're minded to grant permission, is to then suggest the Chief Planning Officer write to his counterpart at the County Council and urge them, in the interest of student safety, to deliver the crossings that we have received the money for through other development as a matter of urgency.
Thank you. So, we can't ask Councillor Richardson any questions. Councillor Warburg, did you have a question for Vince?
I'm not sure it's a question, but can I just second what Vince had just said? And as it's a separate matter, can we get our Chief Planning Officer to write to the County Planning Officer and get these crossings done?
I completely agree with you, and it shouldn't take the fact that we got this school application to get it done, because it should have been done as a result of the housing development. So, yeah, I think we should be doing it anyway. Councillor Carter.
If that was a proposal from Councillor Warburg, it's actually seconding if that's necessary for...
It's not a proposal on the planning application. I think it's a case of we as a council need to try and chivvy that along, because it should have been done already. I presume there is a phasing plan on it. Yeah. From the housing developments. So it should be being developed. We just need to chivvy them along, and that's probably outside of this planning application, but this makes it more important that it gets done. Right, so I'm now going to open this up for debate. Anyone wish to go first? Councillor Elkin, you're looking like you might say something.
I'll go. I mean, it is tricky. I can understand, you know, it looks a bit suburban. It's a big block. But I can completely understand the reasons for it and the constraints. And it does seem that being able to build that on the space available before you've knocked down the other building, there isn't a way around that to be able to continue delivering education on the site. I mean, I do think the brick and the different colours hopefully will break up that form, and the planting will, though I appreciate that takes, you know, 10, 15 years before those trees reach any sort of size, but it will eventually look softer. It seems really positive that there's potential for community use. I know we can't guarantee that that will happen, but it seems positive that it's been designed for it to happen. I do have a lot of concern about the road safety side of things, and I completely echo what others have said about asking the county to deliver those other zebra crossings. You may have picked up that I battle daily through a fairly horrific school drop-off situation where you've got highways approved zebra crossing with coaches, young people, young drivers all coming at it on a corner. It's absolute chaos every day and dangerous, and so that's why I was asking so many questions about that if you can get it right at the design stage, then it saves just years of ongoing hassle and risk. And but it sounds like you are all very aware of how difficult that section is. I was reassured to hear that the school are going to staff it, because that's what's happened at Hartismere. A zebra crossing was put in what was deemed to be a safe space. It wasn't. Now 2 staff have to go and spend an hour at the beginning and end of the school day staffing it. So the fact that that's built in was reassuring. I forgot to ask one thing. This may be wildly unrealistic, but I think the end point for delivering it was next year. That was the goal. So you're right across exam season. So I didn't know in the construction management if there was any scope to take exam season. It's sort of 4-5 weeks in.
Can you put your mic on?
Rebecca in the background, she works for Mott MacDonald's. So Mott MacDonald's are the technical advisor who act for and on behalf of the DFE. We very much have to, wherever practical, avoid exam times. Now this particular project now, just because of the timeline that it's took thus far, means that the actual move date will be not next year, but it will be in the Easter of the following year when we actually do what we call the decants. So the full decant will be from the old school into the new, but that's currently, if things go through the timeline that we're expecting, that is when it's targeting that the school will be moving into the building. But it's very much part of the DFE's process to avoid moving during an exam period, because it would just cause too much.
Yeah. Are you coming back?
Yes, if that's all right. It wasn't so much about moving, it was about construction and demolition. And I appreciate you're on a tight schedule, but if you're sitting there trying to do your A-levels and somebody's across the field with jackhammers, it's going to be quite challenging. So I don't know, is that part of the construction and demolition plan?
Very much so. So part of our planning submission is also we have to submit what we call a KEMP, which is a construction, environmental and management plan. So again, that's looked up by the local planning authority, but that very much shows exactly what will happen during the process for control of dust, control of noise, and also activities during the construction stage like piling. So that is already covered, that has already been issued as part of our planning application to the local authority for them to look at the way we're going to manage that throughout.
Okay. Okay, no, that's fine. I think we've got Councillor Lawrence. Did you also have your hand up, Councillor Hardingham? Or was it just Councillor Lawrence? Right, I'll do Councillor Lawrence and I'll come back to you.
Thanks so much, Chair. I think this is a very well thought out scheme. It's intended to replace a building that is now inadequate for its purpose with the rack system. It needs to move quickly. It's well thought out of. It's designed well. Now that the access issues with the roads into the and car park changes have been submitted late in the day, admittedly, I feel it's a very good scheme. I will support it, and I propose that we accept the recommendations from the officer with the additional requirement that we made to ensure that Suffolk County Council Highways have approved the changes to the access. So I make that proposal.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Elkin? And I think, Councillor Hardingham, you said you wanted to say something?
Well, given that we've got a proposer and a seconder, I was simply going to say that I very much welcome the improved environmental performance of this building, which is fantastic. I'm uncomfortable with the crisscrossing of traffic and pedestrians at the coach drop-off point, but I feel that that's been looked through in great detail and probably can't be improved on at this point anyway. So I will be supporting the application.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to say anything? Councillor Warborn?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. I think we've got to commend the DOV and the builders and the applicants for recognising, I think, the urgency of replacing the existing building. The building is a functional design which brings its own aesthetic, but it's a really, I think, efficient use of the site. It does enable the green spaces, the playing fields to be retained, and the landscaping has been really well thought out. I think some additional landscaping to shield the houses on the northern side would be welcome. It is a big building. It is. For students who are sort of used to working, studying in much small institutions, it is going to be a tremendous shock to them arriving at a building of this kind of scale. But I think that it replaces a building of existing scale and capacity in Thurston, although it is of a different form. I think it is well back from the house. I think it might be quite nice. I think it was suggested in part of the planning documents that we could have some green living walls on part of the building that would actually sort of further soften it. And as this is a legacy project, you're looking at a sort of lifetime of possibly 100 years. So planting could be well considered and it could further be developed. So yes, I think we need to recognise the urgency. We need to support this project. It is going to have a huge impact visually, but I think over the years it's going to be softened and made more acceptable. People get used to it. I'd like to see more smaller schools myself, but there we are.
Thank you. If I just... Oh, you wanted to come back before I...
Only if I may, sorry,
Yeah.
Chair. Just to clarify, Councillor Lawrence, you were effectively moving the recommendation in the report.
In the table paper?
Yes, in the table papers, subject to the Chief Planning Officer having confirmation from Suffolk County Highways that they have no objection to the change.
Thank you. I do understand that the community is concerned about the size of the building, but then again, the current building is not the most attractive building. I know it may be low, flat-roofed. It's not an attractive school site. The new building, when it's new, okay, it's going to be a big, vast, great building, and I'm very pleased that the applicant has worked with our officers to soften and put the brickwork in rather than the cladding all the way over. I think that does help. I also quite like Vince's suggestion of breaking up the sports hall wall. I know it's a long way from the other buildings in Thurston. I'd either like that, or I'd like a bit more thought being put to putting trees in front of it. You've got trees around the other side, the other two sides of the building that face the roads, if you like. They've got a nice line of trees along there, but there was no trees along the side of the sports hall. And trees provide a nice bit of shade, for the students while they're outside as well. So I would like maybe a little bit more thought gone into putting trees around the south side of the building as well as the north and the east. I also still have concerns about the cycle parking. I would very much like to some confirmation that one of those secure cycle lockers is staff only, because we need to be encouraging as many staff as possible to cycle. I'm also not convinced about the visitor parking, because as someone who does turn up as a visitor by bike, I often cannot find a cycle rack, because I go to the door, there's no signage, it's going to be right around the other side. It's not going to be convenient for visitors. So I would like a bit more thought being put into visitor cycle spaces and whether they are in an appropriate location for visitors who are turning up by bike. There are concerns about the traffic. If you've ever been to Thurston at 3:15, Station Hill is a complete nightmare. And the existing one-way system is not adhered to. It's not managed well by the school, so I would like reassurance that that will be managed by the school, and we do not have drivers, whether they're sixth formers, whether they're parents dropping people off, going in where there's an enormous great no entry sign. It's a no entry sign. Why are people flaunting it? It needs to be managed properly. And with the best will of the world, Councillor Elkin, you cannot expect teachers to do traffic management. They cannot stand in front of a car in the public highway and stop a driver. They can manage the children, yes, but they cannot be expected to manage the traffic. So that design of whatever the traffic flow is through that bus area and to the sixth form car park needs to be really well thought out, so that the teachers are not putting themselves in danger if they have to try and protect the students while they're crossing the road, because that is a concern, and we want some reassurance that the school will be prepared to manage and put their foot down and stop people going through a no entry sign. I just think it's appalling that people do. As I cycled past yesterday morning, okay, it wasn't 3:15, it was 8:15, and I was on the bike path, car goes in the no entry sign. It happens every day, and it's a regular occurrence, and people will do it because it's a shortcut. So I would like a bit of reassurance that a bit more thought is put into the cycle parking for staff and visitors, and I would like careful consideration of the traffic movements around the new bus drop-off area and the sixth form parking. Vince.
If I may, picking up on the points you've made, Chair, were you to agree the recommendation, there would be a period of reflection while we just look at all the additional information. Can I suggest that we use that time to discuss with the applicant the possibility of identifying specific staff cycle parking within the system, and if we can find one, we'll just simply substitute the drawings as we issue the decision. Also, that we use the opportunity in terms of the travel plan that has been submitted to ensure that there is reference to a management plan whereby the Norton Road coach, bus and car access is positively managed by the school. If it's in there, that's fine. If it's not in there, we add it, and we can do that in the days ahead as we sort out the other bits. And in terms of the comment you made on the sports hall, we could potentially, because it's in the area of the bus and coach park, we could use the time to talk to the applicant about introducing some additional planting just to the north of the coach parking area, which would pick up on Councillor Carter's point. It would also support your point, and it would help us to enhance the landscaping just along that southern edge without having to modify the sports hall appearance. What you're asking for is simply a bit more buffering, and we'll explore that in the days ahead. And if we can come up with a solution, we'll simply substitute the drawings.
Thank you. Councillor Oak.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, I wasn't suggesting that teachers should be having to be directing traffic. I just meant that I was glad that they were expecting to be managing young people's behaviour around the crossing, because I was imagining that would be something that would be apparent that it was necessary, and it was good that they were expecting in terms of staff time and things like that, that was going to be vital and needed. So yeah, absolutely, teachers shouldn't be in that position of having to direct cars and coaches.
Anyone else wish to make any additional comments? So were those suggestions that you made in light of what I said about the bike parking and the landscaping and the car park management or whatever it is? Do we need to check that that's okay with our proposer and seconder?
Well, I was going to say, I think those are all swept up in the delegation. So we're on the table papers, and it does include the update transport assessment. So I think we can satisfactorily weave any amendments needed through there. The same, the secure and well-lit cycle storage is included there. So I'm sure, as Vince said, the issues that have been raised, we can explore through there. So I'm content that the recommendation that's on your table papers would sweep up those matters. So yeah, provided our proposer and seconder are content with the recommendation we've got as on the papers. I appreciate the point raised about highways, but I believe that's already included. We've got those words on the transport assessment, so it would be recommendation as proposed. Thank you, Chair.
Is there anything in the recommendations about lighting? Is that to be agreed? I'm just trying to see.
Yeah, we've got a condition, Chair, for full lighting details to be agreed, and that includes control on hours of operation. So that would generally include things like cowling, downlighting, colour of lighting, hours, and controls, whether they turn off by themselves or how that's operated. So yeah, that would be included as a condition.
Proposer and seconder, are you happy with the recommendation as it is now? So if no one else has got anything further to comment on, I'm going to ask the governance officer to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is in progress. Councillor Carter, is that a vote for? Thank you. Thank you, members. Chair, that's 6 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. I'm now going to suggest that we have a break. So it's 20 to 12. Can we be back by 10 to 12? So we've actually got a 12-minute break. Back for 10 to 12. Welcome back. We are now going to move straight on to item 8B, which is DC 2503044 at Port 1 Business and Logistics Park, Bramford Road, Little Blakenham. And it's back to Vincent Pearce, who's going to introduce the application to committee.
Thank you, Chair. This might be a simpler one than the previous item, but only you can tell us that. So here we are again in Little Blakenham and Great Blakenham, and we're looking at a reserve matters application for a further unit, warehouse unit, on what is now a very successful logistics park. The planning history of this is very complicated. There's been lots and lots of permissions. Currently there are
Vincent,
11...
Sorry, can I just pause for a minute? Councillor Hicks, you have arrived just in time. We've just started this presentation, so you can join the committee. Thank you.
Welcome.
No, that's fine. No, that's good. Are you comfortable? Good. Here we are again back in Great Blakenham, Port 1 Logistics Park. We're looking at a reserved matters application for a single unit, Unit 14. Originally, the application included other units. They have been deleted from the application, so we are just looking at Unit 14. There are currently at least 11 units occupied. It is working and operating very successfully. This unit is part of an outline planning application that included at least 6 units. It was a hybrid application that also included 3 other fully detailed units. So this represents another expansion of the business. I've emphasised that we're only looking at Unit 14. In terms of the boundary, we're simply looking at that unit there, which straddles Great Blakenham and Little Blakenham in terms of parish boundaries. Overall, everything in the dark grey are units that have already been completed. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and it goes up to 10. These 2 units, Unit 5 and 11, have been constructed. Reserve matters approval for this unit, Unit 12, has been approved. So we're simply looking at that one unit there, shown in a bit more detail. If we quickly fly over and we take a look at Port 1, that's the old Addison Way development. And then gradually coming into focus, moving in from the left, is Port 1 and its logistics park units, right across the top of the screen. And in the foreground we have the energy from waste plant on the other side of the road. So all of these units here are all part of Port 1, and they have a permission that actually takes development right down to Pound Lane, just above the existing greenhouse site. So in terms of everything in yellow there is part of Port 1, and the unit we're looking at sits there. On the screen, we've already approved the details for Unit 12, shown on the right. Unit 14 is an exactly handed mirror image of Unit 12. It follows the standard design, colours and format of existing units. It's a large open plan warehouse, other than for a mezzanine floor, a small mezzanine floor just at the front of the building. And on that basis, we are moving that it should be supported, subject to Chief Planning Officer being satisfied with drainage matters. We have an outstanding comment from the LLFA, and we just need to finalise the drainage details. Other than that, it's another one in a well-rehearsed theme, and we're recommending we go for approval as set out.
Are there any questions for the officer? Councillor Hicks?
Hiya. Can I just ask, on the comments of Great Blakenham Parish Council, that there's no transport evidence, the transport assessment. Could you just comment on that?
Certainly. In terms of the hybrid application, we did have a lot of transport assessment information. It was all based on all of the units being warehouse units of this type. So in truth, we have had that information. We had it at the time of the hybrid, the initial hybrid submission, and that is so recent as still to be valid.
Thank you. Councillor Elkin.
Thank you. Just the couple of things raised by highways, I think, about the bin storage and showers. Is that swept up in the sort of follow-up?
It is swept up, but it's worth re-emphasising showers are important. We've secured them in previous ones. We'll just have to make sure that the details include that. We have part of the condition is to deal with that.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Councillor Hardingham?
Well, it's really just a point of information I'm asking for, really. We have the energy from waste site immediately opposite, and a huge amount of development going along around it, and never any mention of using waste heat from this facility, which was part of the original design plan. Is there any way that this can be brought into planning applications in the future?
It is something we have been trying to secure, and for a range of technical reasons, it hasn't been possible. It's always an ambition to take advantage of it, but it hasn't been technically possible at this point in time, so we're advised. I'm looking strangely at Councillor Hicks, because I know, and that may be unfair, to ask whether you have any...
I do actually know that Lord Michael Blakenham, when it was first built, had a contract to build the largest tomato greenhouses in the country there. It all came down to, I believe it was about a £1 million government grant that would have allowed whatever to happen. Once that grant was withdrawn, it was no longer viable.
Anyway, we are where we are with this application, which doesn't include any community heating from the energy from waste site. So if there are no further questions for the officer... sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, I may get thrown into the debate, but my question is, there is announced in process, or there was an application for a block of 5 or 6, which is impacted on a much larger area and everything else. Is this an attempt to go item by item to avoid all the concerns? It's as if it had come in an application of 8 warehouses going in at the same time, in addition, and changes to the roundabout and all that application. Is this now going piecemeal for warehouse applications to avoid that uproar?
No, this is part of the success story of Port 1. They have a tenant who is anxious to move into Unit 14. We're still negotiating certain aspects of the other elements. So in order to give them certainty that permission had now been granted, they've cut the rest of the submission out of this application, and they will come back with a second application for the other units. But because the tenant is so keen, Port 1, Curzon de Vere want to get this building done quickly, and the only way we could do that was to present this as a single item so that they could establish whether or not the committee wants to give them reserved matters approval, and then build it quickly and get a tenant in.
And then presumably we'll be expecting another application for the buildings that Councillor
Yes.
Lawrence is talking about, and
Yes.
the improvements to the roundabout.
Yes.
Any further questions? We'll move on to public speakers. We don't have anyone from the Parish Council. We don't have an objector. We don't have a supporter. We have the agent, Rachel Dixon. Thank you for your patience. And you'll have your 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Good afternoon. Curzon de Vere Limited is the developer of a successful Port 1 logistics park at Great Blakenham. A hybrid permission was issued in May 2024 to extend the Port 1 Logistics Park. It grants full planning permission for 3 Class B8 warehouses and outline permission for the development of 6 further warehouse plots. The permission has been implemented, with Units 5, 11 and 12 having been completed. Unit 5 is occupied and Units 11 and 12 will shortly be occupied. Unit 14 is Phase 1 of the outline part of the consent. The reserved matters submission confirms the scale, appearance and layout of Unit 14. Access is not a reserved matter with the hybrid permission, granting full planning permission for a new signal control junction from Bramford Road, serving a new east-west estate road. Work will start on the access and agreed improvements to Junction 52 shortly and will take 10 weeks to complete. We are just waiting for final signatures on the Section 278 Highways Agreement. Unit 14 is located north of the green corridor that runs through the centre of Port 1. It is attached to Unit 12, for which full planning permission exists, and is orientated to face west, with the service yard and car parks being accessed from the main north-south estate road. The layout, size, height and appearance of the building are all consistent with the principles established under the existing consent and every other unit at Port 1. As with every other unit, a tenant is signed up, SF Express, and ready to occupy as soon as the building is ready. On flood risk and drainage, additional information will be submitted shortly to satisfy the lead local flood authority. A full flood risk assessment and detailed drainage strategy was submitted with and approved as part of the hybrid consent. Mr Pearce's report sets out a summary of the proposal and how it complies with the relevant national and local plan policies. It confirms that it is entirely consistent with both the overarching outline permission and that there was only one objection from Suffolk Flood and Water, which has requested additional information regarding drainage. Drainage is not, however, a reserved matter and is not required to approve this application. Drainage is subject to a separate set of conditions and details will be submitted to discharge the relevant provisions of the hybrid consent shortly. In summary, the scheme will deliver numerous benefits. Unit 14 will create around 100 jobs and will provide new high-quality commercial Class B8 floor space to support economic growth, meet the demand linked to the Port of Felixstowe. The applicant has a track record of delivering quality Class B8 floor space within the area. Electric vehicle charging points and cycle storage will be provided to meet standards. The Port 1 electric shuttle minibus service provides regular morning and evening services operating along a circular route to and from the site, visiting Great Blakenham, Claydon and Ipswich Town Centre. We hope that members will be able to support this reserved matters application for Unit 14, which will deliver significant benefits to the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the agent? Councillor Elkin?
Thank you. Sorry if I've missed it somewhere in the papers, but is there any solar PV on the roof?
Yes, there will be. Yeah, there is solar PV on every unit that is on the logistics park, and every unit will have one.
Any further questions?
Can I just pop in before we go to debate to check Matthew's interests?
Oh, right, okay. I've just been reminded by the governance officer to check Councillor Hicks, who's just joined us, if he has any interest to declare.
Nope, not that I'm aware of.
So, in which case, I'm going to open this item up for debate. Anyone wish to make any Councillor Warboys?
Yeah, I think I'd like to propose that we approve this application and the officer's recommendations. It is a relatively minor change to an existing application.
Thank you. And I take it Councillor Carter, you were happy to second. Is there anyone else wish to make any comments? I agree with Councillor Warboys that this is a fairly small reserve matters for a building that the other half of the building has already got permission and it looks pretty similar. So as long as the conditions are all the same and it is really going to be a mirror image on the outside, I think it is fairly straightforward. So if no one else has got anything else they wish to comment on, I'm going to ask the governance officer to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress, members. Councillor Carter 4. Thank you. Councillor Hicks, are you logged in or would you like me to do yours verbally? Thank you. Apologies, members, I'm having trouble getting the votes from you to me. So can I take this as a hands up vote instead? So all those in favour? And Councillor Carter, that's unanimous, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We'll move straight on to item 8D, but we just need a change of seats for the planning officers. Are you plugged in and ready to go? Right, okay. Well, we'll move straight on to item 8D, which is DC 26-01623. Oh, no, wrong one. No, that is the right one. That is the right one. DC 26-01623, zones 1 and 2, Gateway 14, Gosling Avenue, Stowmarket. And I will invite Alex Bredman to introduce the application to committee.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies, that was something's just throwing me off, don't worry. Yeah, apologies. It's an advertisement consent reference DC 26-01623. It's an application for advertisement consents for 2 freestanding single marketing boards for zones 1 and 2 at Gateway 14. I forgot what button I need to press. As I'm going through the maps, you'll notice that the north point does kind of variably change. At times the north will be to the top, at other times it will be to the left. It might get a little bit confusing. I'll try to point out where it changes as we're going through. Obviously we're in Gateway 14 here. The site is developing business use. The satellite mapping here is a little bit out of date, as you'll see in some of the site photos later on, but the marketing boards are proposed to go along Gosling Avenue. Again, just a wider pull of the site on satellite. Red line plan just highlights the whole of Gateway 14, but again, as you'll see in a second, it's just this section along Gosling Avenue. Again, we're looking to the north here. In terms of constraints, there's nothing too precious on the site. There is obviously the footpath showing through here, but that's been diverted and now comes along here, as I believe. So the north point, just again so we're clear, the north is on the left-hand side of this image. This is a more up-to-date kind of layout of Gateway 14 currently. You can see this small area here along Gosling Avenue. Again, that's proposed to where these signs are going to go for zones 1 and 2. So just to highlight what zones 1 and 2 actually are, this is a map from the Gateway 14 website, one of their downloadable online brochures. Zone 1 is just this larger section adjacent to the A14, and Zone 2, this smaller section here. And just to give you a bit of context in terms of existing signage on the site, just highlighting some of these. So obviously we have a couple that are sort of on the edges of the site. This is one just off the A14 near the slip road. There's another one as you enter the site. This sort of cluster of 3 along Gateway Boulevard, obviously this being the main stretch as you go through Gateway 14. We have one here which is just advertising availability in the Innovation Hub here. We have another sign doing the same for Zone 4 here. And then this sign here already actually advertises availability on zones 1 and 2. But as I understand, the new signs are proposed to go quite literally in front of the main entrances to these zones, and it just gives prospective letters or buyers, it makes it a lot simpler for them to understand what they're looking at and where they're going as they're navigating around Gateway 14. Again, the North Point has changed now, so we're up at the top, but this is just pinpointing the exact location. So we'll have one sign here advertising Zone 1, Zone 1 being basically all of this land to the rear, and the same for Zone 2, which would be kind of around this area. Just to note as well, there is an existing building owned and occupied by a sand panel, which kind of fills this corner plot, which again you'll see in the photos in a second. So in terms of the signage itself, fairly straightforward, quite simplistic, just advertising what available uses there are, and the same applies for Zone 2, exact same size, just changing a few words. This is what the signs would look like, kind of standing, so appreciate it's a little bit difficult to tell. These are about 4.5 metres from ground to the top of the sign, and 4 metres in total width. The sign itself is about 3 metres tall. Again, the exact same for Zone 2, and these measurements basically match the existing signs that are already on site. And again, I've got some photos of them that I'll show as we go through the site pictures. So, final context, this is the sand panel building just here. Zone 1 signage would go roughly on this little green space here. Again, at the moment, there's still a lot of open space in Gateway 14. Obviously, over time, that would develop. Zone 2 sign will go roughly behind this tree on the other side of the road. Appreciate we're a little bit further away. We'll get closer to that in a moment. This is on the same junction, just, again, giving a broader view of the wider area of Gateway 14. You can see the Bowder building just in the distance. Well, I don't know if you can actually. If you zoomed in, you would see it quite clearly, but it's there. Saying this is the sand panel building, and the Zone 2 signage will just go on this corner here. You'll see it again, kind of roughly in this space here, just behind the car. This is an aerial shot we've been provided with, and again, just to give some context, the signs would essentially go kind of roughly in this space here, and the other one roughly in this space here, either side of that building. And finally, these are the last photos of just showing the existing signs. So again, same layout, same design, advertising zones 1 and 2. And that's all from me, thank you. So as per, the officer recommendation is to grant advertisement consent subject to conditions and defaultives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the case officer? Can I just ask, I mean, those advertising boards are going on a road which goes to one other a building that's already there, so is there going to be much passing trade?
As I understand, it's more so sort of informative for people who are already aware. There's obviously the main one through, that's on Gateway Boulevard already, so that's, I guess, the more, I say eye-catching, the design's the exact same, but that's the one that people would initially notice, and then these are more just to pinpoint exactly where the zones are.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? So we don't have any public speakers for this case, is that right? No public speakers, so we'll go straight into debate. Yeah,
just point of clarity, in the report it says this is in the parish of Creeting St Peter, but it says that the ward members are from Stow Thorney. If it's Creeting St Peter, I probably should declare an interest as being the county councillor, but otherwise, if it's Stow Thorney, I don't need to.
Can we just clarify exactly where it is, which parish it's in? It appears that it's in Stow Thorney district ward, isn't
Yep,
it?
that's it.
But the ward boundaries don't coincide with the county. Is in that area? Is that right? Yeah. So it's in the Mid Suffolk ward of Stow Thorney. But which parish is it in?
It does say Cretan St Peter on our system. That is.
And that is part of your county division, is it? Okay. I don't think that's an issue with participating in the debate anyway. Councillor Lawrence.
The troublemakers arrive. If it's in Cretan St Peter is in need of market ward.
Which means you can't vote.
It said it was Councillors Lay and Patchett, so I'm assuming it is in Stow Thorney?
Yeah, we've got it as Stow Thorney as the ward, but then it says parish of Creting. We might have to take that away in our system, but yeah, I do recollect checking because there was the change of ward at the time that Gateway 14 was emerging. Originally, it definitely was Creting, and then it moved over to Stow Thorney. So whether we've not caught up on the technical side, but yeah, my understanding was it's Stow Thorney ward. As far as county, I wouldn't want to comment, but
I'm just wondering if it is in Councillor Lawrence's ward, then he's not allowed to vote.
Well, Cretan St Peter is definitely in need of market ward. The parish, I attend the parish meetings, so I just need some guidance whether I can participate.
Do we have any guidance there?
I would suggest it would be best if you don't vote on this one.
Can I go on that then?
Anyway, Councillor Carter's had his hand up.
Can I say that unless it has changed ward since when it was made, it is in Stow Thorney. It certainly was when I was board member of Stow Thorney. It was neighbouring with Cretan St Peter, but Gateway 14 is in Stowmarket in Stow Thorney. And it certainly has been, and unless maps changed and I fell asleep and we've gone to a parallel universe, it's Stow Thorney.
I think for the avoidance of any doubt, it's something we need to look into. If Councillor Lawrence, you're happy to not take part in this vote, then for today, I think that's the most sensible way forward, I think.
Anyway, I think Councillor Warboys is going to say something now.
I just think I'd like to propose that we accept the officer's recommendations. It is a bit of duplication, but there is a condition there that once these units are sold, then the boards will be removed. So I think we need to sort of just get on and get these.
Thank you. Councillor Elkin, are you prepared to second that?
Yes, happy to second. They're not lit up, they're temporary. I'm very happy.
And they look pretty similar in size and all other aspects to the other boards that are already there. And we do need some advertising, even if it's not that much footfall down that road. But anyway, unless anyone else has got anything else they wish to say, I'm going to go straight to the vote. If the governance officer can conduct the electronic vote, and hopefully it works this time.
On that note, my system has completely frozen, so I will do this one as a hands up as well. So all those in favour of the application, please. That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's the end of our cases today. So I'm going to close the meeting. Our next meeting will be on Wednesday, the 15th of July at 9:30 in the Elizabeth Frink room downstairs. And the meeting is closed at 12:20. Thank you very much.